It's time for a deep dive on University of Portland basketball.
This is home for me, and so to be able to take on this challenge and bring the city in with the rest of the UP family, I'm very excited about that.
The inside story on the Pilots.
In order for us to get to where we want to go, we want to always make sure we protect our home court. We want to compete. We want to play harder than our opponent. We want to play together. Last thing, guys, let's enjoy the moment.
This is the Terry Porter Show, brought to you on 910 ESPN Portland by your local Les Schwab Tire Center, by U.S. Bank, Coca-Cola, by Nike, Alaska Airlines, Geico, by AAA Oregon, and by Mart. Now here's the voice of the Pilots, Jason Swigard.
Good evening. Welcome in to our 910 studios here alongside head coach Terry Porter. It's our coach's show as we made it home.
Yeah, we finally made it here.
You'd think just bopping down to L.A. for one game wouldn't be the ordeals, but we had our own planes, trains, and automobiles story. But fortunately, everybody made it home safely.
You didn't realize logistics would be that difficult from here to L.A. and
No,
back.
no. So, and I still don't think we know why it was canceled in the first place.
No, we still was not. So it's one of those great unknown secrets, I guess.
So, we are back. Huge thanks, we should say off the top, to Tim Grass, Rich Burnett, Jason Bro, and Chris Buchanan for handling everything there in a pinch at 11 o'clock Saturday night once we found out we were stranded for a day in L.A. Worst places to get stranded.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have mind just knowing up ahead and not have to go to the airport
That's
and spend
true.
5 hours. But those guys, you mentioned those guys, they did a great job of just, putting all hands on deck, making the phone calls, making all the logistics, making all the plans to try to, make it as easy and convenient for our players. Players after that tough loss and then just sitting around the airport. And so hats off for those guys for being there and making it happen.
Yep, and good stories all along the way. So, but we are back here. Terry Porter Show will go now every Monday through the rest of the season, up through at least March 4th. And right before we leave for Vegas for the West Coast Conference Tournament. Again, you can reach us here if you have a question or a comment for Coach, 503-542-0910 or 877-535-9100. You can get a little reprieve tonight, though, Coach. We're going to turn you loose at halftime at 7:30. Athletic Director Scott Lakem going to come by, join us. We'll get his thoughts on how this basketball season is going, not just for the Pilots, but as well for the conference with the new scheduling procedures and then the changes to the format of the conference tournament, how it's being perceived around the conference, as well as recapping the great fall sports season that just recently wrapped up, and a look ahead to spring, some other updates there. So we'll get his thoughts. But in the meantime, as you mentioned, tough loss to open the conference schedule down at Loyola Marymount, a place that teams enjoyed success in recent years. Got off to an okay start, tied there midway through the first half, and then Loyola put on that 13-2 run, gave themselves a cushion right going into halftime.
Yeah, we just did two things that's haunted us up this early part of the season. We offensively we got stagnant and ball wasn't moving, and then like they can do, LMU can turn up the heat a little bit. We had us turn us over there some timely times and converted easy layups out of it and allowed them to get on a little stretch and extend the stretch. And so that part was disappointing because we did get off to a good start early on. We had good rhythm. I think offensively, the ball was moving. We were making the right plays. We didn't let it get stick on one side. They really do a good job. Mike and his staff does a good job of locking in, and they have guys that can really do some great defensive things on the perimeter as well as having the big fella at the rim. But, no, they hats off to them and, making the plays and doing the things in the first half they had to do to get the lead.
Now, the guys have shown resilience all season long, being able to fight back, stay in games. We saw that an 11-0 run midway through that second half, made it a 4-point game right there. But as the saying goes, you have to expend so much energy to get yourself back into it that once you get back within a possession or two, if you exhale for a moment and just take that little breather, that relaxation, that allows the other team, and that's how LMU responded 6 in a row there to push it back to 10. And trying to fight your way out of it a second time's even tougher.
Yeah, we got, I think it was 47-51 when Hugh got that and one in front of our bench, and we were right there. And then, again, you go back to us, and something we've talked about in regards to what we have to do on the road is we have to take care of the things we can control. And there was a stretch there where we just did not do a good enough job of controlling those things. We had 2 or 3 free throw situations where we allowed them to get the offensive rebound, and they, like most of the time, they continue to score. One was a 3. I think the other 2 was 2s. We made a mistake there. And then also in regards to just, I think after the time we got a stop, we turned it over and they got an easy point. So right away, you talked about the 6-point game, 3-possession game, bang, 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 and it became a 12-point game, and it really became difficult at that point. But our guys, again, they didn't quit. They showed some great resilience, and we just have to continue to work really hard every day and try to eliminate some of those mistakes. As I shared with those guys today and we watched tape, we need to learn how to make new mistakes, not the same mistakes. And right now we're making the same mistakes, and it's a growth process for us, and we have to continue to work at it every day.
Well, and since it's been a few weeks since we've had the coaches show here, you've made some tweaks and adjustments to your rotation starting lineup, but Hugh Hoagland has started the last few games there as the big, the center, the 5 or whatever. How have you assessed how he made that transition? He had a couple of really nice games off the bench, but going into that starting role when teams know that you're the guy that's going to be down there in the paint, they can prepare for you a little more. How do you think Hugh's handled that adjustment into that starting role so far?
Well, I think, the first game he started, he had the first game jitters. I think he the first one will admit that. And then other than that, I think he's kind of sat back and settled in. All 3 of those guys have some strengths. And if one of them show a stretch where because they come and start and they have 2 or 3 games where they play well off the bench, we try to, really encourage and give them an opportunity to become a starter. We're going to look at, Hugh and all 3 of those bigs this week really hard and see which 2 are really playing well together, and then go with those 2 as we go into, a very tough place, and a place that has a very good big in Charles at BYU, who killed us last year and obviously is playing extremely well up to this point in conference and non-conference play for BYU.
Yeah, it's going to be important for all the bigs here the coming week at BYU, and then Pacific. They're not as long, but really rough and tumble with Anthony Towns down there, Jaleel Tripp, Roberto Gallinat. So you'll need all those bigs at some point, and hopefully not so early. Hopefully they can stay out of foul trouble. That's the other trick. Right. We'll preview those 2 teams coming up here in a little bit. But the other nice silver lining, I think, from Cal State Fullerton, and it carried over into Loyola Marymount, was Jacob Tryon. Finally, his first real contribution to the team, double figures off the bench there for back-to-back games. How has he finally settled into his spot, some minutes now, and understanding where he can make contributions to this team?
Well, he's continuing to get better each game, and so he's gaining more confidence in his injury, and I think that helps a lot. He's trying to find now where he fits in, and so. I told him, don't worry so much about your shot. Let's go do little things and just work yourself into the game. Your shots will find you, and you have the ability to knock down shots and get good looks. So I've been pleased with the last 2 games. I mean, he's done some things inside when he's had opportunities. He's got some offensive rebounds, and so he just have to continue to play, continue to compete, and he'll be fine. I'm not really worried again about his shot. He's going to get that back to the point where he's knocking them down at a high rate like he was early in the year.
JoJo Walker had the big game trying to keep Portland in at 20 points, 13 of 13 from the line. That was good to see. He had been struggling a little bit from the line earlier in the season, but he found that. He was fouled 3 different times, taking 3-point attempts. I can't remember the last time I saw that college game.
Yeah.
When he did get it off, he hit one of them there. So his confidence quite high right now. How important will that be moving in and continuing in conference play?
Well, we need all our guys to be playing with confidence and at a high level, and it helped JoJo just from a free throw standpoint. You know, he had early on a good stretch where he was really shooting it and converting it and shot it with a lot of confidence. Then he went through a stretch where he was not doing as well, and so that game hopefully gave him back to being really confident about his ability to step up to the line and knock down shots, and it's good to see. But we need other guys along to be able to step up and shoot the ball at a higher clip at the free throw line. But all in all, really pleased with the way JoJo is, just taking the team and continue to execute the things that we need offensively at times, but also defensively. I mean, most of the time defensively, he has to take the best scorer on another team, and so we ask a lot of him.
Yeah, he started out initially on James Bateman. He really contained Bateman. He got a lot of points shooting some free throws at the end when trying to foul and catch up. So his final stat line may be a little bit misleading there with the 14 points, but only 3 of 8 for the field. And as you said, defensively, JoJo leading the way, really accepting that challenge too. You can see he came out and was ready for it.
Yeah, he did a really good job. I mean, he is the guy that's always up for the challenge and knows that, we rely on our guards to be those perimeter defenders for us and make it difficult for our opponent. And, we're not asking them to stop a guy from scoring. We want him to, become a volume scorer and not a kid that's going to be efficient. Keep him under his average and make it difficult for him. And JoJo has done a great job. And we talk about throwing different guys at different scores, but it's also not just about the guy who's guarding him, but it's about the other 4 guys too who've been able to know where he's at when he has the ball in his hands and be in a position to be that secondary defender, that support that whoever is assigned to that tough cover that night, their best scorer, that they're in position to help. And
you're going to need a lot of help with BYU. Whoever draws the assignment at Yoeli Childs, not going to be able to do it all by himself.
No way.
So
no way.
We'll get into that here coming up in a little bit. Still times for phone calls for head coach. He'll be with us for one more segment. Athletic Director Scott Lacob going to join us for the second half of the show tonight. But the phone lines are open at 503-542-0910 or 877-535-9100. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll take a look at BYU and Pacific coming up next week at Provo, then back home Saturday at the Chiles Center. And we'd love to see you out there as well. We'll tell you about some of the promotions coming up as well. Just getting started here. It's the Terry Porter Coaches Show on 910 ESPN Portland.
The inside story on Portland Pilots basketball. This is the Terry Porter Show on 910 ESPN Portland. Here again is Jason Swigard.
Welcome back in, 7:15, alongside head coach Terry Porter here. Still time for a phone call or a comment for him at 503-542-0910, 877-535-9100. And then we'll switch out with athletic director Scott Lacob, get his thoughts here as we start 2019 on not only the basketball program, the conference as well, but some of the other teams having good seasons up at UP. But we look ahead real quick. BYU, always a tough road trip, tough place to play, Marriott Center. Mm-hmm. And this year, Yoeli Childs is early on making his case to be West Coast Conference Player of the Year, averaging a double-double. He's at the top of the conference in quite a few statistical categories. And as they have had issues with their backcourt throughout the season, he has really carried them, but not always translating. They've had some uncharacteristic losses early in the season that we haven't seen them have before. So in one respect, they are vulnerable. They're not as formidable as in past years. But again, it all starts with how you try and go at Yoeli Childs.
Yeah, I mean, they still are doing some of the same things. I think early on they were trying to figure out if they were going to play big and play small. They had a lot of different lineups they used. But it all starts with him. And for us, we got to really whoever's guarding's got to do a great job of making it difficult for him. And we're going to throw a lot of guys at him, and each guy's got to take that challenge and try to make it difficult. You just can't give him any angles, and you can't give him anything easy. We know he's going to have quite a few touches, and he's going to get to his sweet spots. And we have to do a good job making sure that he score over the top of us. Don't give him anything in transition, easy like that. Don't give him any easy putbacks, and make him work for everything he gets. And then overall and just team, they do such a great job of the tempo and how they play. We got to get back in transition, not allow those shooters to be knocking down transition threes, and make sure that they have to score against our set defense.
Yeah, TJ Haws, they're running the points, had some big games for them. Nick Emery had his issue. He's starting to come back. He's still coming off the bench for them. They had a wild one to open conference play in Stockton. They built a 21-point halftime lead. Pacific came all the way back. Childs actually fouled out for the last 3 minutes, and they were able to find a way to get the 90-87 victory, and then had to go to St. Mary's and had a tough night there. They lose 88-66, so they opened up. They've been on the road. They haven't been at home since December 15th.
Wow.
So,
of course,
first game. So, yeah, they'll be ready to go. But tempo-wise, they are a team that is not afraid to run up and down, but at times they can get a little loose with it. What tempo would you like to see this be played at to try and take advantage possibly of them being a little loose defensively?
Yeah, well, we don't want to go up and down. We definitely want to try to take advantage of situations, turnovers, and missed shots. We want to get out in open court as well because we feel that if we do that, we're really good at getting easy opportunities. You really don't want to go up against anybody's five-man defense. And, games on the road in our conference with all the success and the way the teams are playing this year, they're going to be hard to come by. So we have to make sure that where can we get easy points? Where can we get some, 8 to 10 easy baskets, hopefully by turnovers or just getting out and running on their misses where we can get some good looks and guys can knock down shots.
Traditionally on the perimeter, the guards from BYU, not real ball hawks, can be moved around, penetration there, but when they all funnel things to all those bigs down there to you. So when if the guards are able to beat the initial man, what do they need to be aware of so that they can take advantage of that defense collapsing and find other guys open?
Well, they have a very good scheme in regards to team defense. Like you said, the perimeters do a good enough job of not getting blown by, and they try to control the ball handler so they can feed them to their shot blockers and the bigs that take charges. So we have to do a good job of moving the ball side to side, getting the defense going from shifting side to side and then attack. And when they do step up, we got to be under control and be able to make that next play. Is it a kick out for a shot? Is it a drop off to one of our bigs? And that's going to tell us a lot about our abilities offensively to have success because they're going to get out and try to pressure us a little bit, but we have to move the ball from side to side and make strong cuts and quick cuts and be able to, make the next play.
And these guys, most of these guys now have been to BYU and understand it's kind of a cavern and everybody's right on top of you in the student section. Even guys like Hugh made the trip last year. They understand the environment that they're going in, and even though everybody's still relatively young, how important is it to just experience that environment once so you know what you're getting into?
Well, it's one of the better college environments in the country, and so anybody, you want to be able to have that experience. That's not something they see every weekend in our conference. 18,000 people, right on top of you. So to be able to have that experience and know what it's going to be like is important. That's very important. It's not an unknown, and know that what's going to happen and how the crowd is going to be into the game and how important it is for us to make sure offensively we're really taking care of the ball. If we have to go deep into the shot clock to manage that, that we can do that and keep that crowd as quiet as can be throughout the whole game.
So then after that, that'll be Thursday night. It'll be a 6 p.m. Pacific tip, so 5:30 pregame here on 910. Then finally, home opener in conference play Saturday against Pacific. And the Tigers, kind of a slow start to the season, but they got hot right in the month of December. Went on a little winning streak. Damon Stoudemire always has those guys playing hard. They've got a trio: Jaleel Tripp, Roberto Gallinat, and Anthony Towns, some veteran guys. They don't do it. It's not the prettiest. It's not like watching the Warriors just whip it around and throw up threes, that's for sure. But they're very effective with what they do. They're very rugged. They're very physical, and they're excellent free throw shooters.
Yeah, it's more like Memphis, I guess. What's Memphis? Grind and bump and grind,
Yeah, the
or something like
Grindhouse.
Grindhouse. I mean, they're coming at you like that. It's defensive end. They're in your space. They're making it difficult for you. Offensively, they are attacking you every second they can off the bounce. The ball is passed around, or they look at a matchup, they feel that they have an advantage, and they try to really go at that matchup. So for us, it's going to be important, obviously, just to just be ready for that fight that we're going to have for all 40 minutes. Those guys always trying to attack off the bounce, and we got to make sure we're in the places we need to be and make it difficult and not give them, again, another team that likes to turn you over and like to try to turn their defense into easy offensive points. And so it's going to be critical we take care of the ball and be strong with it and not give them those type of layups and points.
Yeah, that was the case at Stockton last year, a game that you had controlled for the most part for 37, 38 minutes. And then the last few minutes, again, they kind of cranked it up, got hot, shooting a few threes, ball bounced their way. But seemingly the last couple of years against Pacific, all those games have really seemed to come down to the last 2 or 3 minutes and who can execute in those final possessions.
Yeah, I mean, it's two evenly matched teams, and then it comes down to, like you said, who execute in the last 2 or 3 minutes at both ends of the floor, and they've been able to do a better job at it. We've been there in a position to win those games. We've turned it over. We've not made our free throws, all the scenarios that you talk about, a one-possession game back and forth where you have to make the plays, and they made them. They got to the line by attacking us off the bounce. They've gotten offensive rebounds, so it's going to be important for us to clean up those areas and do a great job of closing out those games this year, rebounding, taking the ball to the basket, drawing fouls, and then knocking down those free throws.
And you may have another element available to you. We saw Krishan Clark suit up for the first time at Loyola Marymount. I know he's been working so hard to come back from his foot and ankle injuries. He's chomping at the bit to get out there on the court. Is he figuring into plans at all at this point for you, at least for the coming week? I know he's going to suit up and he's going to be a part of the team. What are you looking at trying to find an opportunity to at least get him on the court?
Yeah, well, he's still got to go through this week of practice, and for the most part, I think he's passed all those tests. But he's still got to go through practice this week, and he's going to be, I think, on. I haven't talked to the doctors. I don't know exactly what his minute limitation is going to be, or if he's going to be just totally cleared. That's something that we still got to work through, based on how he passes the test this week in practice and how far he can push himself. But yeah, he's going to be definitely available. To what degree, we just haven't determined that yet or locked into a minute number.
Yeah. What do you think is the one thing maybe most important he could provide for you initially, as he's the situation maybe where you see, okay, I can insert him here and just have him focus on maybe one or two aspects and not worried about all of his game right off the bat?
Well, I think he can be a pretty good perimeter defender. He can be a guy that does some good things off the bounce and find guys and make that next play. So those two areas really just initially, he's going to be able to step on the floor and make guys around him better.
Well, we are looking forward to finally seeing him make his pilot debut. That game with Pacific will be Saturday at the Child Center. It's a 7 o'clock tip. We'll have the pregame happy hour going on. That'll be for the rest of the season. You want to get there. It'll from the time the doors open right up until tip, $1 off the specialty beer sales. There'll be some food specials as well for you. And it's free admission for kids 12 and under on Saturday, January 12th against Pacific. So bring the kids on out and let's fill that place up. Now, we have heard Gonzaga officially sold out. Not a seat up available. So for that'll be on Saturday the 19th. And Gonzaga now, they are fully healthy. They got Killian Tilly back. Crandall come back.
That was going to happen for conference.
Exactly. Santa Clara was also happy that happened for them. Gonzaga here in the new AP Top 25 back up to number 5 overall. So they are clearly the class of the conference, and they're looking to put it on. So It'll be an exciting night, no question. Tickets available at the box office for all the other games. 503-943-GO-UP. We'd love to see you out there for us. PortlandPilots.com/tickets is the website. And then San Diego will be next week on Thursday. The Toreros had a great non-conference, really challenged themselves, had some big wins as well. They've had an injury issue themselves. Isaiah Wright's been out for a little bit, but still with Isaiah Pinheiro and Olin Carter III, they provide their own tests. So
for sure.
It's going to be quite a run here as we dial up the conference.
Yeah, it's a lot in the short stretch here. We got, like you said, as we dive into it, this conference has shown just through the non-conference schedule that it's going to be very competitive. And winning games on the road is going to be very difficult, but you have to try to make sure you win as many games you can at home and try to pull some games off on the road, because everybody's coming in is going to be, coming off a situation where they feel confident about their ability to step in and make the right plays.
Well, you get a reprieve.
That's right.
It was a long weekend. We're going to turn you loose. You can get a little rest and start getting ready and dialing in on BYU. Athletic Director Scott Lacob going to join us for the second half of the show here as we continue on the Terry Porter Coaches Show here on 910 ESPN Portland.
You're listening to the Terry Porter Show on 910 ESPN Portland. With the coach, here's your host, Jason Swigart.
Welcome back in, 7:31 as we work into the second half of the show. And as we mentioned, giving Coach Porter a little reprieve after our long weekend in L.A., but very glad to have with us Athletic Director at the University of Portland, Scott Lacob. How you doing?
Good, Jason. Thanks for having me down here tonight.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. Always good to get your thoughts. And we'll start here with the basketball program and a non-conference schedule. I think some thought the schedule might have been a little easier on paper than it's actually turned out to be. But you start looking at what some of those opponents, North Texas, Texas State, Colorado, were up to. Some thinking they might have been vulnerable in some victories there, but they are playing excellent. And it turned out, to be a more formidable schedule maybe than some had thought putting it together initially.
Yeah, I think that's always the case, Jason. I mean, you and I, we talk in the offseason. What you put together on paper and what teams end up being like are two totally different things. Especially with the transfer market being what it is now, we're signing contracts to play people next year, the year after. And who knows what their rosters are going to look like, coach transition and other things. And you do your best to guess on what you've got. I know Coach Porter and all of us would have liked a couple more wins in non-conference. I thought we did some things well, but definitely, Texas State, North Texas, Hawaii's never an easy place to play. Fullerton's hasn't been a great matchup for us, and those compounded a little bit.
Well, you talked about Hawaii, and the announcement came, I think it was last week, that we saw headed back there, highlighting the 2019 non-conference schedule in the Diamond Head Classic. So that'll be Christmas week, concluding on Christmas Day, but a pretty healthy field there with Washington, with Houston, with Boise State, Hawaii, Ball State, among others. Certainly going to be a time to really see where this program is at in that setting. There'll be no easy games. Washington in there as well, but always looking forward to a trip to Hawaii as well.
Yeah, Jason, this one was part of an agreement with ESPN. PK80 was years in the making, and part of that conversation was they were going to put us in a couple other of their events. PK80, the Anaheim tournament where we got to play UCLA, Dayton, and then got a win over Northridge, and then this tournament. And actually, I don't know if we've talked about this. ESPN asked us to go to Hawaii this year. We looked at the field. Colorado was in it. Hawaii was in it. I think somebody else we were going to play was in it. And it just wasn't the right time. And I felt with Coach Porter to do 3 of those tournaments in a row, we probably needed a break in the middle there. And we took it. And the reality is with scheduling now, and we take heat, and I listen to it, and I don't disagree with some of our supporters, it's hard to get people to come to our place anymore. Pac-12 school, there's no reason that, they have to go to a WCC school. We've talked to several. It's tough to get them on terms that are acceptable. It's a 2-for-1 or it's a 3-for-1. I mean, we're still out there trying, and the reality is the best place to get those teams is on a neutral court in an empty gym. You've called enough of those.
Yep.
That's probably your best shot to get those teams under a lot of the current scheduling circumstances. That being said, we're not giving up, and we're still trying to get some of those teams to come to Childs, but you're not going to mortgage 4 years to get them to come to Childs once.
No question about that. How has you talk about scheduling? Obviously, the West Coast Conference switched up their philosophy as a conference to fewer conference games, allowing for some more non-conference opportunities. And so for a school like Gonzaga, for St. Mary's, after they didn't get in the NCAA tournament last year when everybody thought that they should have been there, opportunities to boost those games for RPI or your net ranking now. For other schools that are either in a rebuilding mode or new coaches or whatever the case, maybe they can get a few more wins to build some confidence. How has it gone from your perspective in the first season of its implementation?
Well, I think the global view, Jason, is if you look at college basketball in the last 15 years, the number of at-large bids for mid-majors are becoming dinosaurs. So if leagues like ourselves and Conference USA and the Sun Belt don't make some sort of adjustment to say, hey, if our second-place team isn't getting in over the ninth-place team in the SEC, we've got to make some adjustments. So I think that's point number one. And point number two, I've never met or seen a schedule that every school in the league likes. I mean, somebody's going to hate it. It's like officiating, that everybody's going to have a problem with it. And I think this is going to be the same scenario once everyone plays it out, because it's based on your positioning last year in a school like USF that, if they stay hot, they might have a spot in an at-large. Their schedule, they're going to have to play the bottom teams a couple of times. So you're not exactly, if somebody breaks through like a USF, like a San Diego, even though they have some injury problems now, they're not getting the benefit of the schedule that another team is. St. Mary's has a down year, and they're getting the benefit of the schedule. That doesn't help the league. And there's some revenue implications with not, if you miss BYU at home, if you miss St. Mary's at home. I think USF and Santa Clara don't play twice this year, if I'm not mistaken. So there's some revenue pieces, but my thing is I hope we stick with it a couple years. Let's see how it works in a cycle. If we all sit around the room and, 6 votes is the majority, we like it, we move on. But I think there's positives and negatives. Some people will love it, some people will hate it, and some people will deal with it.
Then the other piece will be a realigned conference championship format, where the top 2 teams are protected through to the semifinals, trying to protect those top seeds and avoid those early round upsets for who might be in position for at-large bids. How are you anticipating this going?
I really like this. I think if you're gonna go through the 16-game schedule and finish in the top couple, I think you should be rewarded and protected. It's a little murkier now because some teams have a tougher strength of schedule than others, and that team that gets the double bye over the single bye that had a softer schedule, I think that's going to come back around when we get together in conference meetings. I like it for a team that finishes on the top. It protects you for the postseason. Team that finishes at the bottom, it gives you a chance to win a game or two.
Yeah.
And it gives you a chance, we won that San Diego game a couple of years ago. You go into the postseason feeling a little better about yourself. So I think there is a chance for everybody. The downside is you got a couple of nights with empty arenas where you're playing through the bottom teams. I don't know how that helps you as a league or from a branding perspective. But if the name of the game is getting teams in the tournament, you got to do it.
Well, and the other thing that's always careful with those teams that are protected is a long stretch where they're not playing competitive games. And if you get somebody, around that 6-7 teams in the conference this year are not going to be just walkovers. They get some momentum, win a couple of games, all of a sudden they're feeling it. They're on a roll. They got momentum. They've been in that arena for a few nights and feeling it. And 1 or 2 seed comes out and hasn't played a game in a week and a half. Is there more potential for an upset?
Well, and you look at that. I was looking at this the other day. If you're the 1 or the 2, let's say, and you get upset, or even the 3 or the 4, there's a potential you're playing 1 game in 16 days.
Yeah.
That's not the way you want to go into the postseason. But again, you should play the 16 games for a reason.
Right.
And the reason is to protect yourself.
No question. Well, we got a lot of stuff coming on.
I'm glad you think I'm right. There's not a lot of people who agree with me. So I'm glad I have one.
No, I understand why you do it. And you hope, I think the hope is in the first season that happens, you don't get the nightmare scenario where the layoff affects the teams. They have a slow start. Hot team comes up, gets on a roll, and holds them off at the end. And now Gonzaga is a different story. Gonzaga is going to get into the tournament. It might cost them a 2 seed versus a 3 seed or something. But for a team, whoever might be there, San Francisco right now looks like that team. They're going to need every significant victory for them at this point to get those net ratings up. That's the risk that you run trying something new. If it doesn't work initially, you'll get some knee-jerk reaction of, well, this is stupid. We never should have done it in the first place.
Oh, we'll get that. I absolutely guarantee we'll get that from a school or two in the meeting that may or may not wear purple. But it happens in every sport, right?
Yeah.
And in the mid-major world, your champ gets in and your second or third teams are on the bubble. And the reality is, in a mid-major league, you have teams at the bottom that have RPIs that are 250 plus. And when you beat those teams, your RPI or your net now goes in the tank a little bit. It's the reality. And I hope, because a nightmare scenario will occur. Somebody will think that they are wronged in the scenario. Could be any of the 10 of us, and I hope we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater after year 1.
Well, and you look at this non-conference, 100 non-conference wins for the West Coast Conference, which was more than the A-10, more than the Pac-12, more than the Mountain West. As you're talking throughout athletic directors and inside of the industry, is that being received at the NCAA level the way you think it should be, or is the fact that the Pac-12 stinks compared to normal Pac-12 results that you would expect so far, is that going to have some residual effect and drag down the West Coast Conference because those victories over Pac-12 teams aren't going to be viewed the same?
Oh, I'll let you say that about the Pac-12. I'll sit that one out.
No, we've been saying it for 2 weeks. I even flat out stunk so far.
Jason, that's a good question. I think at the end of the day, what will matter is how USF or whomever in that role compares to Ole Miss or Nebraska or Texas A&M. And I mean, at the end of the day, and there's a human element here. We can look at the net. We can look at everything else. There's 12 people in a room pressing buttons on who should get those last couple of spots. I think it helps. I think the WCC's done better in scheduling. I think all of us, and you mentioned a softer schedule. We're trying to do the best we can to buy games and get the wins we can get and put ourselves in more favorable positions. I think top to bottom, there's nobody in the league that's not spending $250,000 to $500,000 on guarantees anymore, trying to put ourselves in a position to win games, play non-D1s where you need to pad. 15 games is a lot, too. Yeah. So as much as that 100 is exciting, we're also all playing 15 non-conference games. So that number's gone up. But I think it's seen, but at the end of the day, it's going to be how our bubble teams compare with the bubble teams in the Big Five.
Well, it's certainly been exciting to watch the conference as a whole overall starting out, and we saw the opening weekend of games really competitive throughout the conference and pretty exciting if anybody tuned in for those. When we come back, though, I want to recap a very successful fall sports season all up and down the Bluff. Look ahead to the spring sports a little bit and get an update as well on the France campus, how everything's going. I know the soccer fields were done down there by the river, but what's the next phase of that project that people can go out and enjoy as well? Athletic Director Scott Lakem here sitting in with us. We'll come back for one final segment here. It's the Terry Porter Coaches Show on 910 ESPN Portland.
The inside story on Portland Pilots basketball. This is the Terry Porter Show on 910 ESPN Portland. Here again is Jason Swigard.
Alongside Athletic Director Scott Lakem here, sitting in the second half of the show for head coach Terry Porter. Long week of travel, Wednesday heading to Provo, so wanted to turn him loose, let him get back to preparations there. But glad we have Scott Lakem in here with us. One final segment, and looking at the university as a whole, the entire athletic program. The women got off to a great start. Coach Sorensen there in the non-conference with some nice victories. It's been tough sledding starting the conference, but real competitive in it. I know they played a tough one with St. Mary's there on Saturday. Real entertaining. And a nice mix of some young freshmen, some newcomers, along with the seniors there. They're shooting their way, keeping in it. They're going to get some conference wins here very soon.
It's a great group of student athletes. Couple of locals, Maddie Molheim from Sunset and Kate Anderson from Jesuit. Two great senior leaders in Darian Slega, Julie Spencer, an Australian point guard, Haley Andrews, who's a lot of fun to watch play. A couple new assistants on our staff, Skylar Young and Tiffany Gibson, who have made a difference. Non-conference was good. We are a better team. If we would have played we didn't play well the first weekend of league play. We played really well last weekend and had nothing to show for it. Team's better, but at the end of the day, we got to win conference games on the men's and women's side. I mean, I hate losing. Cheryl hates losing. Terry hates losing. It gets old, and we're all looking to see how we can do better. I know that they're both under the microscope doing what they can with their staffs. I know that, we huddle with senior staff. What can we do? What are we missing? I mean, you can't sit in the administration chair and just point a finger and say you're not doing it right. Jason Breaux and I had a good talk today about resources and intangibles, and what are we missing? Most of our sports, we're top half of the WCC. Yep. Basketball, we're not there, and that's what keeps you up at night. And but at the end of the day, that women's team, they fight. They're good kids. They do well in the classroom, and you really pull for them and want them to do well. And they had a rough start from a scheduling perspective. Not easy to start on the road over the holiday. St. Mary's, I think, made 12 of their first 15 threes, or we probably would have knocked them out early. But, they got a tough one at Gonzaga, and we'll see if they can bounce back. But I will tell you, where they were 12 months ago to where they are now is a big difference. Well,
and as we get into February, we're going to have a couple of double headers where the women will play right before the men's game. So that'll be Saturday, February the 9th. Saturday, February 16th, and Saturday, March 2nd. So they'll play, I believe, at 4:30 was when they will tip. The men are scheduled for 7. But come on, really exciting style of play that she's got them going. They like to get up and down. Good shooters on that team, and they really do play well together and for one another.
Yeah, and that makes a difference. And that game, I forget the final. It was like 90-83 on Saturday. And again, you hate losing, but it was a fun college basketball game. It was up and down and well played and good shooting on both sides. And kids were on the floor scrapping for every loose ball. I mean, that's what you want to see.
Well, you mentioned the success of the other programs. Fall sports, really successful year, beginning with the cross country team. Both going to the national meet, men on the podium again, the women with their best finish in school history. The volleyball team with their best season. They get to a postseason tournament, most wins in program history. Men get to the second round. Men's soccer gets to the second round of the tournament. And I know Coach French in her first season had some big wins early on as well. And they're looking really poised to start knocking on the door of an NCAA tournament bid coming soon.
Fall was really good. It was really, really good from what we did in non-conference and nationally and men's cross country. I mean, Rob Connors got it dialed in. I mean, he had some good senior leadership, and I mean the way the guy is blending, developing young kids with experienced transfers and Europeans is impressive. You watch the guy and you marvel at his quirkiness and success all in the same breath. The women's program is, it was nice to see them have a big bump this year. It was an experienced team. Now Ian's got to go on the road and figure figure out how to get back there. Men's soccer, I mean, Nick Harlan-Voigt knows what he's doing. He and a couple other coaches have really elevated our league. I mean, we talk in that basketball discussion. We went from a bad league to 2 or 3 teams that can punch in the mouth and finish in the top 20 now. Women's soccer with the same cast. I mean, Frenchie did an amazing job. And in this business, culture is the name of the game. And we talk about it. The theme with the programs that are doing well and those that aren't is, what's that locker room culture like? And the way Michelle flipped that culture, I know she would have won more games. I think on paper it was a better season than we could have expected. Volleyball's just, that's just a cool story. I mean, really from 0-27 to winning, 16 to 18 games. And now it's the off season, and the off seasons are just flat and nutty now, Jason, with the transfer activity and everything else. I mean, Michelle's got 3 BCS kids unofficially committed, and I know, men's soccer, Benji Michelle signed with Orlando of the MLS. Couldn't be happier for him. Great kid, first-generation kid. I know we'll get his degree and made a big impact. We've got a couple of kids in place to follow him up. And, now it's a revolving door, kids coming in and out. But I really like our coaching staff and the locker room chemistry of the fall programs.
Yeah, and you can sense that energy, and offices are real tight, and all the teams are, there. It's an intimate athletic department as it is, and so you can feel that transfer from program to program, coach to coach, and I know they're all real supportive of what each other's trying to accomplish.
Well, and they're accomplishing the same thing, right? I mean, so many of these programs we talk about, soccer's and cross countries in particular in the fall, they're all trying to figure out, Nick Harlan-Voigt's got 9.9 scholarships and 20 some odd kids on his roster. How do you balance that financial aid with merit aid and keeping kids happy and recruiting? He and Rob Connor sit in there for fascinating conversations. they sit and exchange ideas on how to maximize financial aid and international aid and transfers and the right grad path for grad transfers. And they're all against how do you recruit kids to Portland? How do you recruit kids to the WCC? If you don't have a coaching group that's working together, you got problems.
Well, and then you look at spring sports coming up. I know there's a lot of excitement around the baseball team, what Coach Loomis, the improvement that he made with last season, despite some injuries there. So there's a lot of anticipation. Track team it's still indoor track right now. Tennis teams in the second half of their season have gotten off to good starts as well. So, and then an update on the Franz campus down there. We saw the soccer fields get christened, and I know there's much more to come with the actual track, the boathouse for the crew, some other the indoor tennis facility as well. How are things going in that regard?
We're moving along. Soccer's done, like you mentioned. The hope, knock on the studio wood here, is that we'll have the dock in the water this summer. It's up to the Willamette River properties that be, but I think we're far along. And then, I would be surprised if we're not starting on both the track and the boathouse projects by the end of this calendar year.
Lots going on. I know it's an exciting time. We certainly hope we'll see some people out here. It's hard to think spring sports is just about ready to get going. We're just into conference play for the basketball season. We still got the better part of 2 months before we get to Vegas for the conference tournament. So busy time up on the bluff.
It sure feels like spring outside. It's the college baseball season starting in February is crazy, but there's an energy. It's nice for us to take a deep breath in the office now. We have one more week till the semester starts, but the energy in the spring is pretty intense because you've got basketballs rolling, then you've got tennis is starting, you've got baseball starting. Spring soccer season still means something in terms of integrating your transfers and your getting ready for your freshmen. It's a busy time, but it's a fun time.
Well, we hope to have some fun at the Chiles Center here coming up. Now, the guys will be at BYU on Thursday, but back home against Pacific, 7 p.m. tip at the Chiles Center on the 12th, and then San Diego on the 17th. That's a 7 o'clock tip. The Gonzaga game, we told you, is sold out. But we'll have a pregame happy hour at all of those games. Free kids, Saturday the 12th, 12 and under. You want to go to 503-943-GO-UP or portlandpilots.com/tickets. to get your tickets now, and we hope we see you out there.
I know I'll be there.
You'll be there. You'll be front row. You got a ticket charge next time they come barreling into you.
Next time somebody comes barreling at me, I'm getting the heck out of the way and bringing my Pepsi with Coke with me.
There you go. Athletic Director Scott Lakem, thanks so much for stopping in with us tonight.
Thanks, Jason.
There you go. Thanks to Preston Highfield as well. We'll talk to you Thursday, 5:30 p.m. before tip at 6 on the BYU game. That'll do it. We'll send you back to ESPN programming. Have a very good night.
This has been the Terry Porter Show with the head basketball coach of the Portland Pilots. Tonight's show was brought to you by your local Les Schwab Tire Center, by U.S. Bank, Coca-Cola, by Nike, Alaska Airlines, Geico, by AAA Oregon, and by Mart. Join us for University of Portland basketball all season long on 910 ESPN Portland.